Hello everyone. This is a group's video presentation for week 3 discussion topic. A river runs through it, a multiple streams meta review authored by Michael D. Jones and others and published recently in 2016. This video is prepared by Lolly Jia, Utkarsh Narain, Ankur Chaudhary and myself Surbhi Jain. The reading introduces us to a concept of MSA, multiple streams approach, and conducts an empirical study using content analysis of prior published MSA peer-reviewed research papers. We have divided the video presentation into 3 subsections, beginning with understanding multiple streams approach from the lens of Jones et al., followed by a case study to illustrate MSA, and in the end, diving deeper into the journal's analysis on recent MSA applications. Next, we'll focus on how and why policies receive attention and come to fruition. MSA can be traced back to 1984 when it was first published in John Kingdon's Agendas, Alternatives and Public Policies. It was further refined by Kingdon himself in 1995 and followed by Nicholas Zaharadis, who also happens to be a co-author of this article. A quick search on Google Scholar identifies over 12,000 citations of the Kingdon's 1984 edition, alone in 2020. Before we move ahead, I'll request you all to take a good look at the picture for a couple of seconds. Kingdon analyzed policy cases using the theoretical tools of MSA, illustrating how policies come to exist as we see. At the core of his approach is Kuan, March, and Ulsan's 1972 garbage can model of organizational choice, which is covered in depth by our peers in another week 3 presentation. MSA is applied to understand public policy at the system level, modeling context to understand specific policy decisions. It suggests that public policy is not entirely random. MSA is a handy tool to analyze both complicated and complex policy scenarios. It is employed to explain several case studies related to public health, environment, and transportation policies, to name a few. Kingdon coins MSA's theoretical components by demarcating meaningful categories in the study, including problems, policies, and politics. These 3 components are referred to as streams in our discussion. Let's dive deeper with Ankur.
Thank you. A problem is defined when we want solution to issues we perceive as problematic. There are several subcomponents within a problem stream. Indicators are broadly metrics on how policy actors identify and monitor potential problems, such as metrics measuring the severity of a given problem like unemployment, inflation. Focusing events are specialized indicators which are jarring and sudden, the COVID-19 outbreak and 9/11 attacks. Focusing events provide powerful impact or changes once they are attached to a particular problem. Load refers to the capacity or bandwidth of the institutions to deal with problems. For example, the fiscal stimulus package during the pandemic heightened the concerns on the government's budget deficit. Feedback is the information provided by analogous programs related to the problem of interest. For example, using policy gaps in handling decreasing fertility rates in Singapore as a feedback when conducting a similar policy in Japan. The policy stream contains a finite but complex collection of ideas and possibilities. A well-articulated policy stream consists of 5 subcomponents. Value acceptability. Does our proposal conform to the existing value constraints? Technical ability. Is it feasible to implement the proposal? Resource adequacy. Do we have the required resources to implement the proposal? Policy networks or communities. Do communities which facilitate robust and effective development of policy ideas exist? Network integration. Are the communities interconnected to facilitate debate and discourse over policy ideas? The political stream defines the context of the agenda. There are 3 subcomponents. First, the national mood refers to the general orientation of the public towards issues, values, or solutions relevant to the policy problem. For example, raising awareness against environmental issues such as multi-layer packaging and single-use plastic across citizens. Second, party ideology is the aggregate orientation of the political parties within relevant institutions and is a significant factor in steering the behavior within institutions by inhibiting or facilitating agendas. Lastly, the balance of interest is the aggregate position of relevant interests, including advocacy groups and other actors interested in a particular problem. As you can see, these 3 streams of problem, policy, and politics are independent until coupled by 2 other concepts. a policy window, and policy entrepreneur. A policy window is defined as the fleeting opportune time to link the three streams. Policy entrepreneurs are the action makers who provide the necessary doors to couple the streams and shape policy outputs. And in an entrepreneurial success depends on three critical factors: resources such as time and money. You need to be highly networked, therefore access to critical decision makers, and strategies employed. Now, I would like to pass on to my colleague Rachel.
So let us apply the 5 MSA concepts onto the images we saw a few minutes ago. Does it make more sense now? Here, we have Greta Thunberg as one of the policy actors during the policy window of the Paris Agreement to address climate change problems. Now, let us examine the concepts of the MSA using a real-world example, the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. In 2008, the burst of the housing price bubble in the United States had created massive impact to the financial system worldwide. The global financial crisis was a focusing event under the problem stream, which had called for a policy change in the financial system. From the policy stream perspective, the Dodd-Frank Act was deemed as the viable solution to improve the accountability and transparency in the financial system and to protect the consumer from abusive financial services. It was technically feasible through the establishment of several agencies, such as the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Financial Stability Oversight Council, and so on, to carry out the mandate of the Act. There were also concerted efforts from an integrated network of legislative and financial system actors to strengthen the financial system reforms. The components of the political stream were also reflected, whereby the national mood then was to place a higher scrutiny on the financial market players and to uphold consumers' interests against risk-taking activities. This was also in line with the ideology of the Barack Obama administration to mitigate the impact from the economic recession. The balance of interests of the other groups were also fulfilled through the implementation of the Dodd-Frank Act. The financial crisis had enabled the three streams to merge and create a policy window for policy entrepreneurs to intervene and reform the notorious Wall Street and to protect the public interests against the speculative market activities. Although there are criticism on the Dodd-Frank Act, it has contributed significantly to the financial system by shaping the risk management practices of the financial institutions around the world today. Now, let's dive deeper into the next session with Utkarsh.
Thank you, Rachel. So Jones and his fellow researchers examined 311 peer-reviewed articles that tested MSA concepts and were published in English from 2000 till 2013. The most popular policy domains amongst the reviewed literature were health, with 28% of all publications, followed by environment at 20% and governance at 14%. The researchers observed that MSA predominantly uses qualitative case studies, with only 12% papers using sophisticated quantitative analyses. They note that MSA has been applied across 65 different countries. More than 50% of the papers studied governance at the federal level compared to only 15% at the local level. Interestingly, 13% of the literature analyzed transnational issues. More than half included all streams but not the policy entrepreneur or policy window. Incidentally, the policy window remains the most popular of all the MSA concepts. Most of the analysis did not employ all MSA subcomponents. Now for some limitations and further research scope. While MSA is being adopted to deal with emerging policy domains, the researchers outline a need to specify MSA's theoretical benchmarks and hypotheses to better identify the potential and limits of these adaptations. Many major MSA concepts are quite loosely defined, and not all are used by researchers, as highlighted earlier. This is problematic given that Kingdon's original articulation of MSA defines all the concepts as interrelated and necessary to explain the policy process, particularly agenda setting. Rigorous periodic assessments to identify gaps and best practices are required. While MSA offers us unparalleled empirical richness in terms of context, levels, and methods, Scholars should also focus on systematic theory development to add analytical rigor and coherence. In conclusion, MSA remains a robust tool to analyze wide-ranging policy options. Thank you for joining us today and look forward to a fruitful discussion on MSA in the class next Tuesday. Thank you.